Ladies, gentlemen, on the menu today, in honor of our greatest friend Rengao, is going to be a stream dedicated to the Advanced Caro Kann, but even within the Advanced Caro Kann, the Knight C3 variation, which by many is called, by the way, the Kotronias variation, named after this Greek attacking monster called Vasilos Kotronias, a remarkable dude. Audio is a bit quiet. A remarkable dude from Greece who attacks like an absolute madman. He attacks like an absolute madman, and we love that. And so we are going to have a look at some games. Now, to kick off proceedings, I'm purposely not starting with a Kotronias game, because we are going to keep that as the ultimate treat for the end. But note that fellow countryman Gyula Saks, Hungarian fellow countryman that is, former world champion candidate by the way, also was a big fan of this variation. And the reason for that is because this line is nothing but vicious aggression and tactic. Audio is still low. Is the audio still low? I adjusted it a little bit, so it should be pretty okay now. Alright, since no one cares to respond, we are going to go with chess. Okay, here we go. So, the variation occurs after the moves e4, c6, d4, d5, e5, advanced, bishop f5, and knight c3. So the idea behind knight c3 is that we are going to play g4, and it also cuts out some of the bishop e4 ideas. So yeah, it's quite a potent, annoying approach. Usually e6 is played, by the way, here as main line, and then after g4, bishop g6, knight g, e2, and h4 are the main theoretical ideas. Knight e2 predominantly, so that h5 can be met with knight f4, highlighting the awkward placement of the bishop. This game, however, so queen b6, which is going to make it look quite a bit like the Tal variation of the Caro Kann, which is that instead of knight c3 we play h4 first, and then bishop d3 usually follows shortly after. I don't know why, but my stream is quite laggy. Potentially because everyone in my family is online. Radio. So bishop d3. This is not a trade that, you know, positionally speaking, we would normally want to pursue. But there is not much else we can do with the light squared bishop. And also it accelerates our development. Zapchas coming in strong. Thank you, thank you. Is it considered more mainline than h4? No, not anymore. H4 is more trendy nowadays. I think there is a
Is this considered more mainline than the tall 4h4 stuff?
I think there is a massive overlap, and I think that it serves white players who play e5 really well to play both, because they complement each other really well. e6, knight e2. It's quite commonplace in this line that the knight goes to e2 rather than to f3. The reason for that is because it covers d4 equally well, but from e2 often we go to f4, floating sacrificial ideas in these two squares, especially bearing in mind that black will play c5 rather sooner than later. Knight e2, queen a6, queen trade, no thank you. putting pressure, by the way, on the mentioned e6 pawn. Knight d7, castles. Or g. c5. And here, apart from bishop e3 per played, there is a very curious move here offered by the computer, which I would have never found in... no, that's actually not true. I would have considered it, but I don't know if I would have played it. What do you guys reckon? A bit of an outlandish move here. Any takers? A4, that's it. A4. A4. Floating the idea of knight b5. Yeah, definitely A4. But bishop e3 was played, which I think is best. 97. DC. Now, this is a very typical idea in this setup, that unlike in the French, we actually often actively seek the opportunity to take on c5, allowing our opponent to take e5 in turn, because the idea is to try to open up files. As long as the position is closed, we are actually not doing well, because the positional trump cards are in black's hands. The good bishop, the wonky structure. So positionally, we are not happy. Tactically, we are very happy if we manage to blast this position open, and our superior development can come to the fore and become the main factor in the position. So this is definitely something to keep in mind, that DC is not only completely off the cards, but we often go out of our way to find ways to explode the center like so. Really cool stuff. Knight c6 played. And here comes another super common idea. Wonder who is going to find this. This is something that normally I would consider or call extremely ugly, but here it is super effective. Bishop d4, yeah, I would consider that ugly, but I wouldn't consider this effective. The irony is, I'm going to give you a hint, is that what we want, and that's why, by the way, we need to go back all the way to bishop e3. So the idea here is that when we take this, black can't take this. They can only take e5, which is what we want, because that will open up these files against the king. We would rather black take this than this. And knight c6, as much as it looks like it attacks this, actually prepares the capture on c5. But what we want with white is to keep this and let this go. So the only question is, how? And the answer to that question is a3. Which is surprisingly effective here, because with the queen being on a6, b4, b5 is always a fork. And so taking on c5 is just losing on the spot to b4, b5. And so black is forced to capture on e5, which exactly is what we wanted. And now we have got this awkward or weird structure where we have got this pawn chain and 4 versus 2 west of the c file, or d file I should rather say, but they have got 5 versus 3 here. But the main feature is, well, it's part of the pawn structure, but it's the fact that the king is stuck in the middle. Knight c4. Your turn, chat. Sachs actually failed to find... Well, that's not the right way to put it. There are 2 very good bishop moves here. And I'm curious which one you would pick. Bishop f4. Not on the list of best moves. Problem being, bishop e7 castles is easily done. You need to play something that messes with this plan. Yeah, bishop d4 is the text move. This was played with the idea of delaying bishop e7. But I don't know why, but I'm more attracted to this. Because it seems to accomplish, in my eyes, a little bit more. In that it denies bishop e7, but it also denies castles. And it keeps the d4 square for the knight. It's a random move to see. In appearance, it's random because it doesn't pin anything, and we're not accustomed to playing bishop g5 when this diagonal is completely empty. Hello, Santiago from Mexico. How are you going, buddy? Yeah, I can explain how to analyze the game. That's exactly what we're doing right now. So just watch and you will learn the mastery. No, not Mexico? Well, I had to try it. Venezuela. Wow. Okay. Welcome, welcome. Caracas? Caracas or not? Yeah, bishop g5 is provocative. That's correct. But after h6, bishop h4, there is no more provocation because g5 is met with bishop takes. Anzoate Gul. Now that really does sound like an Aztec or Maya tribal name. Does anyone know? Because I clearly do not. If Venezuela was part of the Aztec or the Maya civilization. I think it was Maya because the Aztecs were more in Mexico, right? Can you confirm, buddy, that that was more Mayan than Aztec? None of that. Okay. So what is it then? Please teach me. I love to learn. Anzoategul. That sounds so cool, man. I don't want to Google it. I actually stuff it, I will. Oh, it's Anzoategui. So that's an I in the end. Wow, this looks like a beautiful place, man. Some nice beaches and stuff. Capital city is Barcelona. Wow. Okay. Alright, okay, this is fascinating. I will read this later. That is very, very cool. That is very cool. It's just indigenous tribes, yes. Okay, very cool. Alright, so back to chess. So Sachs played bishop d4. Oh, Charlie in the house, by the way. Shout out to Charlie. Knight f6. And knight f4. This is exactly what I told you, folks. That we are very eager to exploit the pressure on these, in particular these two guys. And so knight f4 is announcing 700 different attacking patterns. Rook e1, knight e6, 1. Bishop takes, knight d5, another. Well, that's about it. Bishop e7. What would you play here, ladies? White to move. Oh, thank you, Charlie. Yes, they do feature legendary humans like Tal. Not wrong. Not wrong at all. So, best move for white, please. No brainer. B5 was played. Second best only. But the idea is definitely not C6. Anybody else? It's the keep it simple, use the Morphy principle. This is what we wanna do here, guys. Exactly, Rook e1. That's so easy. Chess can be so deceptively easy. Rook e1. And simply, the move is designed to prevent castles, because then you have knight takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and that's it. The game is over. Due to the double attack. By the way, e5 here is not playable, answering a question, because of multiple reasons. The most obvious one is rook e1. The second most obvious is I can take this and then play rook e1. And the last most obvious is that I can take this and be a pain. So it is just not doable. And obviously after rook e1, again, it's completely denied. It is obvious. It is absolutely impossible, and you guys should train your brains to this, that I have got a fully developed army. Black is 2 moves away from castling, and they want to win a piece by forking up 2 pieces on the file where their king is. This never, ever worked in history of chess. Not once. So the proposition that this could be good goes against everything we know about chess, right? That's why I said obvious. Now, it still could be an exception, but it would be nothing short of a shocking sensation if this move worked. And therefore, you are not that you are not allowed to be afraid of this, but your general approach to a move like this is excitement. Because you are wired to think that this cannot possibly be right. And look, I am not ridiculing you for asking the question, but I'm telling you why it was obvious that it's bad. Right? It is what it is, guys. That's how this works. This is the textbook case of, to those who are attracted to moves like this, that their chess is 100% wired to see everything through the glasses of material. Whereas those people who see this as there is no way that this can be right, are trained through the glasses of correct chess understanding, development, piece activity, king safety, first and foremost in this case. And they just don't feel that this could ever be right, with the king sitting in the middle like a duck getting to be destroyed. The question was good. But the answer is also what I'm telling you it is. And I'm glad you asked. But that's what it is. Can I change the pieces to go to classic? I could, but I'm not going to, and I tell you why. Because if I did, I would forget to change it back. And this is the required piece pattern or whatever for chessable recordings. So whilst I agree with you that the classic looks better, I'm not going to do that. Right, Sachs played b5, which is also good, but yeah, in a different way. In a practical game, as a weak player, you want to play a move like rook e1, but it would take some time to get to that point during a game. I don't know why it would take some time, because the... Welcome in, Mr. Neil. This is the most natural move in the position to play, right? So, unless we look for tactics, your first candidate move in this position for white should be rook e1. Right? Because what else? Developing moves, right? Everybody's playing, the rooks are not playing. So rook e1 is your first candidate move. So I don't think it would consume too much time to answer your question. Rook e1 is definitely typically the type of stuff that you do not want to spend too much time on, because it's just that the type of move that is ought to be correct. Anyway, back to the game. So b5 was played, and now... Sorry guys, my commands don't work. I'm going to try to fix it today, but it's going to take me some painstaking hours. Now, however, we really are under the pump, in the sense that if black castles, then our opening play was a bit of a fiasco. I don't think I helped you much, Amatore, by saying what I said, but it is what it is, man. Like, one of the worst things that lower-rated players do in chess is that they ponder way too much about moves like this, trying to justify it. It's like, you don't need to justify, you know, helping an elderly person across the road. It's just the right thing to do. The same applies for this. It's like, why would I need to justify what is the glaring obvious? Everyone is developed, this one isn't. It creates new threats, done. Do not try to justify obvious things in chess, because it takes an incredible amount of time then. And besides, that kind of mentality leads to you questioning everything, and that's never good. You need to have certain points in your chess thinking where you just go like, I don't need to justify that. That goes without saying. So 96 is that a question or is that a statement, Santiago? Either case, you are correct. 96. It is now no time for mockery. We need to go after them. Tack, tack. And once again, this is a sacrifice that is not really calculable, but nor do you need to calculate it. The fact that they cannot castle either way, and rook e1 is coming with a tempo, and there is no move to attack the queen, and or to offer a queen trade, those factors just mean that this is good enough. King f8 played. Desperation. 95, and honestly the rest is just Carnage City. Yeah, you are right, Santiago, of course. Tack, tack, tack. 92. Check. King e8. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Of course. Oh, welcome in, Peter. Welcome in. Rook e1. Bringing another boy to the party. c6. That's curious. I don't think it's bad, but I think it's unnecessarily flashy. Rook e1 is just clean. Queen d8. Bishop g7. Rook g8. Who can see here a checking sequence that is going to win this rook by force? I need a full sequence of moves here. Either that or winning even more material. Yeah, I will give you a bit. Santiago, that is one part of the business, but I have to check here and check. They are going to go to C8, right? Moodman, thank you for the follow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I agree with that, Charlie. Yes, that does look great too. Okay, now we put together the puzzle pieces. So after check, king he check, king he queen e6 check is the key move. And then queen d7 hangs the rook. And king here allows the bishop e5. Well, I would call it mate, but not quite. So this is exactly how the game ended. Check, 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 check. And after queen e6 check, they threw in the towel. That was a warm-up game into the topic. And now we are going to move on to the Cotronias games. And the first one I'm a bit reluctant to present to you. Yeah, it was a brilliant game. Because it is against a fellow YouTuber who I respect immensely. And that is none other than Danny King. So this is the brutal Carnage City game between Cotronias, Vasilos Cotronias and Danny King. This is gonna be a treat, guys. What do you mean, Santiago, that it was close? I don't understand that. Like, that game was a lot of things. Close was not one of them. That was an absolute whitewash. Yes, indeed. Indeed, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Sometimes I get... Oh, I see. No, you got it right. Not only were you close, you were correct. I thought you meant the game was close. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Yeah. Alright, so, funnily enough, same. Queen b6. This is a move that is not really played nowadays too much. Almost everyone plays e6. Bishop d3. And so now, again, we are approaching a structure that is very similar to the previously mentioned Tal variation. 92, 97 castles. 97. In fact, it's almost identical, barring the queen a6, queen h3 ideas. Which, by the way, and this is something that I really recommend you to do. And there was a question about how to analyze games, so this is a hint for you right away. So you notice here that the black player is significantly higher rated than the previous game. And you notice that they are omitting queen a6. Which, if you have an analytical mind, immediately makes you think, okay, so who does it favor if we include queen a6, queen h3? And I would say that in this particular structure, it was very clearly beneficial for white to have the queen on h3 because it was out of both of these capture zones. So neither knight moves came with a tempo. It put extra pressure on e6, which allowed us to go after the e6 pawn immediately. And last but not least, the queen on a6 was very awkwardly placed. No pressure on d4, constantly sitting in this motif. So overall, we already have drawn a conclusion that in this structure, it seems that queen a6 is only recommendable if it immediately comes with instant benefits. a5, queen c6. Now it would have been interesting to consider because we were forced to play a queen move. Oh, Amatore, you are leaving us already. Come on, man. DC, we have already discussed this concept in the previous game that unlike in the French here, it is our interest to blow up the center. Yeah, it is because 94 is going to now come with a tempo, Charlie. 95. Queen g3. Knight g6. And once again, we have got the exact same story that I talked to you about earlier, which was that we give up the center pawn, we try to keep the c pawn. And the idea behind that is that we're trying to utilize the superior development. Actually, I shouldn't make it red. and the open files to wreak havoc against the black king, which is very, very far away from castling. Now, what I really like about the way how Cotronias conducts the game is the fact that a lot of people here would be tempted to defend the pawn on c5 before going in for knight d4. And whilst this is not bad, this is not best. Best is to go full Morphy and just go gung-ho attack and not care about the pawns. Takes. Bishop e3. Yes, that Nimzovich-Salva game is actually in the Power of Pawns book and Chessable course that yours truly recorded and published a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, but the context there is very different. Like, that is the exception to the rule, not the other way around. All right, let's go. e5. Where do we move the horsey, ladies? And you should already be on your guard if I ask you where to move a hanging piece, because more than half of the time it means we are not moving it at all. Yeah, knight e6 would be delicious. But after queen c8, I'm not sure where it's going, right? Because the last thing you want to do is to take f8. Well. Isn't this a beautiful opportunity, folks, to put to use what we learned in the previous game, where I told you that such folks, when development is not exactly in abundance on the other side of the board, is not something you fear, but something that you want to see. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you even one more time because I think it's quite powerful. So a good chess player here, and by good I mean someone quite strong, would definitely consider first and foremost the forward moving knight moves like these. Now knight f5 instantly loses to knight f5 and the queen hangs, so that's out. Knight to e6 doesn't seem to cut at the cheese because after the queen goes back, the e6 knight has nowhere to go, and this trade is disgraceful because you're trading the most undeveloped piece. So we look at knight b5 when d4 seems like a problem, but this is again the typical case where a higher rated player would get excited about the prospect of their opponent playing d4, not deterred by it, because it just looks all kinds of wrong. That the black king is stuck in the middle, I keep on going forward, and they keep on not developing. And I don't know the answer, but after knight b5 d4, I would think that bishop takes d4 is almost immediately terminal, because after ed I have knight d6 and knight c7 checks covered by the queen. So I would go knight b5 d4, bishop d4, e d4, knight c7 check, king d8, knight a8, dc3, rook a d1 check. And at that point, I would almost conclude my calculation thinking that black is completely busted. So, yeah, that's what I would do. d4, let me just very quickly check with the machine what the machine wants me to do. Oh, knight e4 is something I missed. Ooh. Oh, hello. Mind you, the machine doesn't like knight e4, but this is a super sexy move because if takes, then you have knight d6, right? And otherwise, you can go into all these checks. In fact, what the hell is going on here? Why is it not... Maybe knight f5? That's the only move I can imagine that doesn't lose for black immediately. Yeah, knight f5. Knight f5 and survives. But yeah, let's just go with check. King d8. Take this. Take this. And yeah, like I said, rook d1 looks carnage city to me. Maybe if I really want to be crude, I could go here because this idea occurred to me to do this check here. Now, this could be total rubbish, but I love it when I calculate lines like this. Hello? Hello? To be fair to the doubters, I didn't come up with it when I calculated it back when d4 was played. It just occurred to me now. But nonetheless, I'm still mighty impressed with this. And I think it actually does work, because after take, there's mate here. And the only way to stop it is to play knight d5, but that hangs. Now, did I see all of this? Most definitely not. But I can guarantee you that I would have considered and played, in fact, knight b5 here. And once again, seeing d4 is a source of excitement, not a source of worry. And it's not always going to be like this. Sometimes it's just going to not work. But far more often than not, moves like this, in a position like this, where no development, rubbish king, this is not the move you worry about. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, that was the game. But then he played queen c6, which is a lot harder challenge, for, of course, for white than d4 would have been. Yeah, you got to be a believer. Right, next move. Really cool. Very tricky to find. I'm very curious to see if anyone can come up with this next move. Nope. No one is engaging with the chat. Okay, cool. In the chat, rather. That's cool. It means everyone is thinking. Bishop d4 I find a bit cheap. Yeah, he walks into knight f5, right? Negative 00 knight 000. Thank you. Rook d1. Yes and no. Knight a7 is a second best move. You definitely need to do something punchy. f4 is interesting, but once again, I'm worried about knight f4, knight f5 there. It's one of those typical moves when, like, coming up with it is like an absolute nightmare, and once you see it, you go like, oh my god, so obvious. Like, how did I not think about it? Bishop g5 seems to walk into f6, which strengthens black's position, allows castling by hand, and so on. Also, I'm not sure what motivates this, because we agreed that d4 is not a threat, right? Maybe he wanted to step out of knight f5. Now, having said that, knight f5 is a bit of a tricky one, because depending on the move that we play, knight f5 may or may not be annoying. Like against something like f4, it's very annoying, because after knight f5, knight e3, we are facing this spin, right? So that's an issue. But there are moves where it doesn't cause so much trouble. Knight a7 was already mentioned as second best. The move played, guys, is a6. a6. No less. I will give you some time to embrace the beauty of this concept. It is absolutely brilliant. The very basic idea, of course, is that if takes a6, then we have rook takes a6, and the rook joins the party, immune to capture because of the royal fork. Additionally to that, we are actually threatening to take this. Can't take because of 96. Thank you, Save a Lot. And so then he played what appeared to be best, and it appears to me to be best, to b6, trying to keep everything closed and yeah, just trying to avoid confrontation as best as possible. But now this is a constant, super annoying tactical source, because this pawn is super close to touchdown. So now this guy is not going anywhere. Next move. Let's go. Here actually Cotronias did not play the engine's favorite move, but I don't blame him, and I would have played exactly what he did, even after knowing what the engine's best move is. Because what Cotronias played is very natural, logical, good-looking, attractive. It's just ultimately what we want in chess. Yes, Santiago, this is. Except that you cannot do that by yourself. Because there is no one to guide you through the various ideas and concepts. Except the engine, which is the most useless teacher ever. So, yes and no. If you would like to study a game the way how I present it here, you need one of two things to help you. One, a coach, or if you don't have one, then you must go to a source where you find this game analyzed so that everything that I'm telling you now is explained in the book or course. So that you basically have someone to answer your questions. So you analyzing a game that is just raw, like no moves, so no commentary, nothing added to it, is generally speaking not the way to go. Rook fd1 is very close, senor, but it's A. Because these are the files we want to operate along. This is actually a very interesting thing that a lot of club level players get wrong, and I often get questioned or asked about this, is the way how you decide where your rooks go. And indeed, you feel the need to put a rook on d1, but which one? And the story is that having played a6 and then b6 made this rook more or less entirely useless on the a file. So there's no need to keep it there. The e file is far more likely to be a relevant avenue for attack. And so rook a d1 makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. Okay, d4. Now this is a move that we don't need to think about, right? Wink, wink. This is a very devious move because you would think that, oh yeah, I just take. Take is ruining the entire position for white. This is why chess is hard. Because you look at bishop takes d4 and you go like, no brainer. And actually it's a mistake. So let's first figure out why this is a mistake, and that is going to allow us to figure out the appropriate measure. Yeah, so bishop takes d4 is no good because of knight f5. This is a move that has been on our horizon for ages, by the way. And so if we play bishop d4 without looking at knight f5, that means that we are really not paying attention to our own game. Because we already saw knight f5 in previous variations. And unfortunately, it's a pain. It is a pain. Queen h3 is most natural. But then after knight takes d4, all of a sudden we are down a piece without sufficient compo. Because bishop e7 castles is really fast now. Ouch. And so, what do we do instead? And now we are encountering another concept that I have been talking a lot lately, both on my YouTube and with my students. Which is that even in sharp positions like this, one of the best ways to find your best move is to ask yourself the following question. What is my opponent's threat? And I would like to invite you to answer that question. What is black's threat? And the more you press yourself to that direction, the more you realize that black does not have a threat. Because ed loses to knight d6, followed by all kinds of dirty discovered checks once the king stumbles on d8. And for the exact same reason, this is also not a threat because of knight d6 check. So the answer to our question is that perhaps black's most annoying next move is knight f5. None of these concern us at all. At all. And so, if knight f5 is the most obnoxious threat, and bishop d4 also doesn't work because of knight f5, what you need to address is not this or this, but this. And all of a sudden, this move becomes a very obvious choice to go for. Now, let's just for our fancy's sake see what we would do here. Knight d6 check, king d8. It's a very anticlimactic scenario, by the way, because believe it or not, but in this position, the engine thinks that the best move for white is fe. The idea behind fe is that after check and takes on h8, f8 is gonna hang too. But yeah, anything wins, by the way, so it's really a moot point here. Day 3000, welcome in. So after queen h3, knight c8 was played. That is definitely desperation mode. But once again, Feingold comes to mind. What else? What do we do now? What do we do now? I do recommend the YouTube playlist Day. Yes, definitely the Amateur's Mind is the one that you want to get into first and foremost. Inside My Head is also pretty good for lower rated players. Careful with knight d5, because as much as I like the fancy component to it, to my mind this move is a little bit of a, how do I put it politely, not single-minded, but too simplistic. You create only one threat. And what's particularly bad about this move, which by the way lower rated players commit this mistake all the time, is that what does black want to do? They want to develop the bishop. This move forces them to play the correct move. Never ever should you play moves that force your opponent to play what they want to do. Never. You never want to force your opponent to play the correct move. You are welcome, Day. If you could leave comments below the videos you watch, that would help me and my algoritmo, by the way. And what I find particularly interesting about the Amateur's Mind is that somehow I feel like there is no logical continuum or continuity in the way they approach the position. For example, here, half of chat wanted to take... Oh! Nate Brady coming in strong with the big fat Raiderino. Even my shoutouts might not work, by the way. Oh yeah, I think they do. So shout out to Nate. Actually, Rengao, can you please send a shout out to this lovely human? And welcome in, Raiders. Welcome in. We are running a lecture on the Knight C3 Caro Kann today. So, everyone wanted bishop d4. We figured out it didn't work because of knight f5. We dealt with knight f5, and now more than 50% of people are completely unwilling to look at what we wanted to do earlier. Why? We couldn't wait to sack that bishop to crack the position open. We figured out we couldn't do it. Now, a move later, circumstances appear to be far more superior, because now the file is even more open, and yet we are not engaging anymore with the idea. Why not? I'm not suggesting that you don't need to calculate or that like the whole shebang, but the mentality needs to remain that I can't wait to go. Obviously, bishop takes the d4 can be met by knight f4, but I don't understand why that is a problem. I can go queen g3, queen g4. As long as I don't blunder mate, I should be a-okay, right? It's a good thing that we're spotting a mate threat, like thumbs up, but what's the big deal? In fact, now the knight has become a new target. If anything, things got worse for black after knight f4. They played knight d6. Move recommendations, please. If Neil is still in the chat, he will like this one. Is Mr. Neil Bruce still present? Knight d5. Doesn't that fall for knight b5? Hello? Yeah, rook e1. Guys, bring all the boys to the party. Look at this. Ah! That is what I was telling you in my other video and other stream, that when you have a position like this is Morphy, man. Morphy. 200 years ago. Not quite, but you get my gist. And up to date, the best chess players on this globe do what he taught us to do. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to follow what the guy said. Be Morphy. Be Morphy. Or play like Morphy. Ready up. Knight b5 played. What do we do? What do we do? Thank you, Maris, for the follow. Oh, wait, no, you didn't follow. You have been already here. I'm just reading something random. Yeah, bishop takes, easy peasy. Easy peasy. Let's open up these delicious lines against the king. Then he played bishop e7. Obviously, knight takes loses to rook takes and then b5 falls. Bishop e7 played, but this is not going to make a difference at all. I would take this. But Cotronias took on b5 first, which I would consider to be slightly inaccurate, but it allows an absolutely breathtaking finish. I would play bishop takes. And after knight takes, just take back. And yeah, this to me looks like all over Red Rover, yeah. That king in the middle is just dead. So in some ways, it was a bit of a bummer that Cotronias allowed this king to castle, but I'm pretty sure that he already saw the game-winning motif, which is why he allowed this. Immediately regrouping the knight toward the black king. We know that the knight on f5 is a piece that is worth 7,000 points against the castled king. If you didn't know that, Chess Principles Reloaded King Safety. f5 knight against the castled king is death. And apart from Rengao, now I invite humans to put the icing on the cake. Yeah, I call it the Kasparov Knight, Sergeant, in my course. If you had my course, you would know it. Queen h3 is illegal. The queen is on h3. Queen h6, on the other hand, would make us look like rock stars. And Matutsky is unstoppable. Matutsky is unstoppable. Not bad, is it? Not bad at all. What a game indeed. Alright, I changed my mind. I'm going to look at some non-Cotronia's games because Rangao has seen them all. So I would like to offer him some different entertainment. And I think I found it. He loves adult entertainment. Yeah, like really sexy chess games is what you mean. Cool, cool, cool. Here it comes. This one, Rengao, I don't know if you saw this, buddy, but in some ways, this is one of the crudest ones ever. But this is a little bit more complex than what we have seen so far. Brace yourself for something incredible. So this is the more traditional main line. Yep, this is it. And then there is h5, there is f6, there is c5. There are all kinds of pawn breaks here. And yeah, they are all very challenging. Knight f4. And bishop f7. Kama Sutra chess. Yes, indeed. Pretty much all the time on this stream. Queen e2. Trying to put pressure here and cover e5. Takes, takes. Knight d7. We pull back. Queen f6. Both sides are following opening principles like don't deploy your queen too soon. Good to see. Good to see. What's White's best move here, ladies? After queen f6. Chesslover says g5 with a question mark. If only that was an exclam. G5, that's it. Queen d4, forced. Knight takes e6. Take, take, take. Knight e7. Alright, I need a good move for white. What is a good move for white here, ladies? Not the one that Minasian played according to the machine. Yeah, something to dodge the trade, right? That would be optimal. Here is the bad news for all of you guys. The trade is inevitable. So I will show you what the engine wants because it's absolutely crazy. The engine wants h4. I don't understand the move yet. And after check, take, take, f4 is the engine's main line. Maybe without h4, knight g6 would be a decent move here. I don't know. It's weird. Game was bishop e3. Game was bishop e3. Queen e5. So one big difference is that now if we do the same, then after f4, I guess knight g4 is obnoxious as hell. Or knight f5 even with a tempo. Yeah, actually that is annoying. So h4 didn't stop that, but at least it didn't walk into the tempo. That's something else. And so Minasian played bishop h3, which I quite like because it sort of cancels out knight f5 ideas. Take, take. Well, sometimes you have to embrace the endgame, guys. Sometimes you have to embrace the endgame. And I told you that this was going to be an absolute banger. So you are now probably sitting there thinking, what the hell, next game, please. Nah. You need to embrace all aspects of chess, including the endgame. And I would actually rather call this a queenless middle game, much more so than an end game. In the sense that there is still problems with the king. And so, yeah, downvote. All right, I will count the downvote, buddy, because 5 minutes later you will be building a shrine dedicated to my name and Minisian's when you see what happens. So watch this. Knight G6. Castles. Knight C5. Very annoying. Bishop is hanging. We want to keep this diagonal so that queenside castles is not allowed. So bishop h3. King f7. How would you proceed now? F4. F4. Very, very natural indeed. I would score a tempo with rook e8. You go rook e1. I would go bishop d6. You go f5. I go knight f4. And I claim that I fixed my problems. Yeah, look, f4 is interesting because it does look aggressive indeed. But is it really? Like, I wasn't 100% sold on how much aggression this does, yeah? I feel like we are actually just ruining our own position here. Aren't we? We haven't accomplished anything here. But it does look appealing. I must give it to you. That f4, f5 does look appealing. And if it wasn't for this rook e8, bishop d6, knight f4 plan, I would be like, yeah, this is valid and good. But as is, nah. Check this out, ladies. Hello. And by the way, the annotation is completely wrong. This is best move by far. And what white is gonna do from here on out is absolutely crazy. The two rooks and the two bishops are so beautifully coordinated that they absolutely slaughter the two knights. And this, by the way, is not unusual at all. Knights without good squares, meaning squares where the knights are nicely protected by pawns, tend to struggle a lot against the bishop pair. 96. Once again, a textbook case of knight being on a loose square. b6 seemed to me to be far more natural. And I don't understand why this guy didn't play it. And here, we have got the obvious b4. And again, the annotation is wrong. And this does look like $1 million for white. No matter where. Obviously, king g8 is mate. Like, that goes without saying. But the point is that even if I drop back here, rook e1, and this king is very awkwardly exposed. And bishop e7 can be well met by, I'm guessing, one of these bishop moves will hurt a lot. Hello, hello. Yeah, but let me show you a positional idea that is absolutely breathtaking here, which I absolutely love because it's not a move that a lot of people would think of at first, but once you see it, you go like, wowzers. And that move, folks, is this. Hello, bishop reactivation. It looks like it takes forever. Yeah, that is definitely an exclamation mark pervert, yeah. Yeah, but once the bishop lands on c4, good luck, Chuck. Good luck, Chuck. Shout out to Nordovich, by the way. Yeah. So, game went 96, f4. A 96 looks ridiculously ugly. It just looks like all kinds of drama. f4, f5 is game winning. Note that f4 is capturable, but then we're going to win a piece. So they played 97. Submit your best move, please. Super easy. Indeed, rook d7. Now black's position is deteriorating at an incredible pace. g6 to prevent at least f5. Which is quite funny because f5 is still one of the best moves, but white did not play that. White played something else that I like more. Rook e1, exactly. Bring all the boys to the party. The tension is building up. Where is the guy who said downvote for this game, by the way? Where you at, bro, now? Axelon? Where you at, brother? Rook e8. That's essentially tantamount to resignation. Upvote. Buddy, you can't do both. Rook f1. I suppose. Look, part of the deal is that you can't go wrong. But this would be a move where I would be like, I don't understand it. Because if you want to play f5, why don't you play f5? That would be my only criticism toward rook f1. Okay, let's move on. Rook e1. Rook e8. Bishop a7. Which is hitting this with a tempo, FYI. Knight g7. Now, at this point, you are already going like, holy, this is looking like a study. Axelon, my friend, now is the time when you need to backpedal and ask the neighbors to also hop online and click upvote. Bishop d4. Now, quick head count. Can't move, can't move, can't move. Maybe can, but iffy. And, well, this can move, but hardly counts. And this can move, but bishop f6 will bring it back. So, I don't know if I need to spell it out for you, but a certain German word is incoming. h6. Bishop f1. Unfortunately, I botched it. I should have asked you to find this move, but Tim is already suggesting a similar idea. This is a mate, in case it's not obvious, ladies. Mate. Mate. Yeah, so this is not your everyday checkmate setup, yeah? That is not something that you score every day. This is definitely a Jessica Alba of checkmates. Or whoever your crush is. King g8 played. Oh man, this is so much fun. Check. King h8. 7 rather, excuse me. And simultaneously, black actually resigned the game. Because after any black-white move, but let's go with rook takes b7, it's a full-on Zugzwang. Nothing can move without losing significant material. Check this out. Hello? Wrapped up much? Wow, man. That is so, so cool. Oh, yeah, you can play h5, but that's not going to make a difference. It's just delaying the inevitable. Full-on domination. Rook d8 is probably best, but then after bishop f6, we reset the status quo. Rook e8, and then you watch them struggle. I reckon in some ways this was a more impressive feat than any of the previous ones, because first of all we met with greater resistance, and second of all it was far more unexpected that this endgame will turn out to be a vicious, tactical, attacking scenario. This was wild, man. Absolutely brutal. Knight d5 and explain how one might find this. Well, look, it's easy. All you need is a rating of about 2500. A few GM norms. I wonder why the Armenian players don't play much anymore. Minasyan, Lipityan, Vaganyan. I tell you why. Because all the three of them that you just mentioned are plus 70. That's why. They do play a lot, but we are talking of a generation that is retired by now, well and truly. So, I mean, I don't mean to disrespect them, and age obviously doesn't stop you from playing, but it certainly puts some limitations on what you can do, right? And I'm not quite sure, but like, as far as their age is concerned, but I'm pretty sure that both of them are in their 70s at least now. So let's see. Lupichan was born in 58, so he's 66, so I was more or less on the money. Vaganyan would be, I reckon, a little bit younger. No, older actually. He was born in 51, so he's 72 now. 4. And Minasyan? Slowest Googling in history. Yeah, he's 57, so he's younger. But nonetheless, they are of an older generation, right? So, how to find knight d5? The core idea that you want to spot here, and this is more calculation than positional understanding, by the way, is that the knight on c5 is not a piece that can stay. And if this has to go, then your pieces just gain immense activity. So, for example, the knight e4, rook d7, or bishop g2 lines are all completely winning for white. Even rook f5 check wins here, by the way. So basically what I'm saying, Drengao, is that as much as I would like to present this as a positional piece sacrifice, precise calculation proves it to be almost winning in every single line. Alright, so the best line according to the engine is b6, b4, knight e4. Rook d7, bishop e8, bishop g2. And that just wins the house. Now, a good player would sense that there will be stuff happening here because the coordination and the exposed king together, lack of coordination and the exposed king, makes you believe that this should be winning for white. So it's the immense power of the bishop pair, the clumsy 2 knights, the exposed king. There are many, many factors that make you think that this is worth investigating. Yeah, king f7 was definitely bad. Yes, that's actually something that I didn't quite think about, but yes. So bishop e7 or rook d8 would have been much better moves when it's far less obvious. So in comparison, if we do this now, it's still a valid idea. But now, obviously, yeah, castles may be on the cards. But b4, bishop d7 is going to take this thing out of that. Oh, the King Charles Cavalier is in the house. Yeah. All right, one more game, ladies. One more game before we call it a day. And I'm purposely trying to dodge the Cotronia's games.